Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to day 14 of our 21 days of prayer and fasting. I hope you're still with us, and I hope this is still as helpful and as life-giving as it has been to us for you. I hope you're holding on in the fast. We've got 7 days to go, and I think it's going to be worthwhile if you stick it through with us all the way to the end. But I'm excited today. We are wrapping up our Names of God part of this 21-day fast, and I get to close it off today by talking about Yahweh, Lord, Master. In fact, Hebrews thought this word Yahweh was too holy to voice. And I'm excited about going there today because, again, if you look in Exodus chapter 3, you realize that it is one of the very first names of which God introduces himself. And I was reading just a little excerpt here in the Jesus Bible put together by Louis Giglio and his team. And you find that I am and Yahweh are interchangeable. And he says this: God told Moses to call him I am because he is and always will be. He owes nothing and no one for his existence. Rather, he is supreme, uncreated, sovereign, and the sole God of the universe. All things owe their being to him. How cool of a thought is that? Really, Yahweh speaks to that. It's self-reliant. He is self-reliant. He is self-existent, and he is self-dependent. And what that means even for us is that the truth is our whole being rests on his existence. We all owe him for our very being. He holds us in the palm of his hands. Now, for us control freaks like myself, they become difficult to comprehend. That, man, I'm not in control of anything. But when you realize him who holds our lives in the palm of his hands is the one who owes no one else for his existence, who was never created and just simply is the most powerful and supreme God. There's a measure of trust and peace that produces in my soul. And that's what I want us to do this morning. As we pray today and as we get around the word this morning together, and even in your own quiet times, even if you do it tonight, we've prayed for a whole bunch of things. We've interceded, we've gone hard. But today I wanted us to kind of get into the Psalm 46 space. Be still and know that he is God. I just want us to get into a moment of stillness. Would you still your heart? Would you quiet your mind? And would you again remind yourself of the all-powerful, all-glorious, all-sufficient God that we serve, who holds our lives in the palm of his hand. In fact, that was a thought I wanted to share this morning in Psalm 46, verse 10, to be still and know that I am God. And when you look at that passage, you realize that really there's two schools of thought about what God was saying and about who he was speaking to when he said, be still and know that I'm God. On one hand, some scholars believe he was talking to our enemies. They're in the middle of the battle, and he's talking to our enemies and telling them to be still, telling them to slow down, to drop their weapons, and to stop messing with God's people, lest he get involved and remind them of who he is as the all-sufficient and all-powerful God. So on one hand, he displays himself as our deliverer and our defender. On the other hand, some scholars believe God is talking to his people, and he's calling us to trust in him and to not worry or panic or fall into anxiety, and to rather still ourselves and remind ourselves that our God, he is our shelter and our tower of refuge and strength. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I got to realizing, and I asked him the question: which one is it? Is he talking to our enemies? Is he talking to us? Is he showing himself as defender and our deliverer, or is he showing himself as our tower of refuge and strength and as our source of trust? And a friend of mine responded in the most beautiful way, which I want to encourage you with this morning. He said the power really doesn't have to be in one or the other. The power is actually found when we understand God as both defender and deliverer of his people, and as the one who is our anchor and our tower of refuge and strength. And in him we find everything we need. And that's what I want to encourage you with this morning. Would you still your heart, and would you slow your mind, and would you again remind yourself that the God that we serve, he who holds our lives in the palm of his hands, he is your defender, and he is your deliverer, and he is your tower of refuge and strength. And so today, as you pray, would you take a moment in silence as you consider again and still yourself to remind yourself of our God, Yahweh, the relational God.